John Cabot is the reason why so many people speak English today in North America.
John Cabot, by being sponsored by King Henry VII of England, allowed the English to make a claim for all of North America.
John Cabot was born Giovanni Caboto in Genoa, Italy around 1450. He learned how to sail and navigate while working for a Venetian trading company.
In his early years, John Cabot claimed that he had vast experience sailing the Mediterranean basin and exploring, and he even claimed he got as far as Mecca.
There was great demand in Europe for Asian silks and spices, and at that time, the only way to get them was by going east from Europe and paying middlemen who controlled this route.
Upon hearing the news of Columbus's successful voyage to what we call today the New World, John Cabot realized that there were opportunities to pioneer another more northerly route around the territories Columbus had discovered to reach Asia by a water route.
By 1495, Cabot moved to England and successfully convinced Henry VII to finance his idea of finding a new water route to Asia.
After Cabot left Bristol in May of 1497, he sails a northern route across the Atlantic Ocean. John Cabot makes his first landfall in North America, somewhere near Newfoundland or Labrador, and he immediately claims this land for his sponsor, King Henry VII of England.
Cabot thought he had discovered a more northerly and a shorter route to Asia than the one that Columbus had found.
Upon his return to England, Cabot was warmly received by King Henry VII, and in less than a year was granted another larger expedition by the king.
Cabot left Bristol in May of 1498. They do more extensive exploring than he'd been able to do in 1497, and they decide to return home before the water got too cold, before the ice encroached.
He runs into a number of storms, and he is never officially heard from again.
John Cabot should be remembered for two prime reasons. First, he allowed the English to lay claim to much of North America. Second, his crew brought home 3 Inuit men, clad in furs, who within a couple of years were dressed like Englishmen, speaking English, and convinced the English that the native peoples of North America could be transformed into Englishmen.
Since the Europeans had access to spices from Asia, it became very important to them to preserve their meats and flavor their food. They brought them from Muslim middlemen, but when prices were getting extremely high and unreasonable, they decided to find a route to Asia to get the product straight from the supplier, and would therefore be cheaper. And so started the age of exploration and in turn colonization in the 15th century. Of the many men that set sail for Asia, John Cabot of the English was one of the most prominent of them. He had discovered for the Europeans of that time what we now call Newfoundland. Although he set sail for the English, he was born Giovanni Caboto in modern-day Italy. He later moved to Venice, where he learned the tools of the trade to become a great sailor and a navigator. After failing to acquire support and funding from Spain and Portugal, he immigrated to England to seek patronage from the English King Henry VII. In doing so, he anglicized his name. And so, funded by England, he started his voyage west, leaving from Bristol sometime in May of 1497. He sailed across the Atlantic on a small vessel, which had been baptized St. Matthew, with a crew of 15 men, one of them being his son Sebastian. Cabot knew that it would be very difficult and long to sail straight from Spain to Asia, so he came up with the idea of sailing at northern latitudes, so that the voyage would be shorter. Where he first landed on his voyage is still uncertain to historians. There are many speculations and theories of locations, such as Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, Cape Breton, the Gulf of St. Lawrence, and even as south as Maine. Though the most widely accepted theory is that he landed at Bonavista, a tip on the east of Newfoundland. Cabot returned to England on August 6th of the same year. Although he did not bring back any spices or silks, he claimed that he had found a new route to Asia. No one doubted him. He was very well rewarded with fame from people, both in England and his hometown of Venice, as well as great fortunes from Henry VII. His second voyage was in 1498, the next year. It was highly anticipated that this time he would bring back more than news, but spices and silks too. This time he set sail with 5 vessels, a great advance of funding. He never returned. Only a single ship went back to harbor shortly after departing due to a furious storm. The 4 remaining ships never returned, and not a trace of Cabot or the rest of his crew were ever found. Because John Cabot was unable to find gold and spices on his journeys, the English used the colonies in the places that John Cabot had discovered as places for religious prosecution, political prosecutions, and trade. Cabot had created trade routes through his explorations, which made leeway for the English government to become more active in the colonization of North America, which spread the English language. Cabot, inspired by Marco Polo, in turn also inspired many people to take to the sea in search of new lands and riches. All of Cabot's official explorations were funded by King Henry VII, which meant that everything he discovered and did was for the English crown. Thus, he helped create English claims on North America. On March 5, 1496, Henry VII issued letters patent to Cabot and his sons, authorizing them to sail to all parts of the eastern, western, and northern sea to discover and investigate whatsoever islands, countries, regions, or provinces of heathens and infidels, and whatsoever part of the world placed, which before this time were unknown to all Christians. His legacy is seen through the language we speak, the crown that we live under, and the land that we live on, and the people killed in order for the Europeans to make their claims on the land.